Briefly covered last time.
We've got some.
Schools right there. So I think. Yeah, it's kind of right by my office.
Okay, you're just gonna address those.
I think so.
She works 0 hour at school, so she gets off like.
Pretty busy. I haven't had a chance to touch base with them. That's my understanding is we're gonna. The bright one.
It's Nathan.
There's a guy. Got the parking.
I'm not saying it's like high end chocolate.
Yeah, he shot himself. That was it. He lost it. And I think one of the. There was an energy stuff over here. Definitely where.
It's like me, so it's so.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, he did not.
Graphic. I know.
Every time.
That's 2 excuses in a row. I don't know. Get it together.
I spelled my last name.
Samantha.
You do a new last name.
Got it right this time.
Oops, I didn't catch that either. Sugar missing. It's not gonna tell you it's spelled right.
Date on when. Gonna be done.
No, if you pronounce it.
Kind of hate.
That's a date.
I should have never.
We do this day.
They look at them. They do need to.
We're gonna push them.
What's happening now?
I don't know.
We'll go for the right channel. We'll go through Tony, not through her.
Pretty basic last names.
Street link.
Oh.
Maybe that. Not felt anything like either.
Yeah, they're taking the curve. They're going.
Hey, so that might not wait.
I think like 6.
Been a long day.
I didn't know. I should be waiting.
Traffic starting next week is gonna. Shutting it down.
Customs is stuck in the traffic light.
Oh, no.
The other morning,
God.
wreck on the corner, on the hill on.
I've heard of that, and then Tater Black was closed off too or something?
Well, they rerouted them to Tater and then downtown View. Well, then when they reopened 72 back up, Main Street was backed up to the light at Town View. Because there's no governor up at the top and people trying to make a. This week, a nightmare. Absolute nightmare.
There's no overflow. It's.
Oh, no, it's one or the other, man.
Yeah, if there's one problem, it's the whole time projected.
Yep. All right, let's go ahead and get started this evening with the Centerton Board of Zoning Adjustments, August 20th, 2024 with a roll call.
Here.
Brandon Kubota.
Here.
Jen Lewis.
Here.
John Texel. Jeremy Harris.
Here.
Brandon Langford.
Here.
Devin Murphy.
Here.
Joey Engel.
Here.
Jeff Safer.
I'm here as well. All right, first thing on the agenda is a variance, 2402 for the Centerton Flex Space Parking Space Requirements at 1812 East Centerton Boulevard. It is zoned C2. It's 1.59 acres. Is the applicant here to give us an overview of what you're requesting?
That collective from CEI Engineering, and we also have the owner, Mike Stewart, who's here. What we're requesting is a reduction in the parking amount. The project is everyone familiar with the location. This is east of the Walmart house, north of the Jiffy Lube car wash and the Jiffy Lube and the Diamond car wash. This is at the dead end road off of that. That's already site up there. What we're intending to build is a flex space that has several smaller units of about 2,000 square feet to be put out towards the contractors and other small businesses. So this is really more of the intended use is more of small contractors, be it HVAC people, pest control, those types of things where they have a small space to store things and pick up materials and head out to the job site. So that's more of our intended use. The east side building is the smaller subdivided units of about 2,000 square feet each. And the western building is just a shell that's just a little under 12,000 square feet. So what we're requesting is a parking variance to reduce the amount of parking. The code has two different parking calculations. One of which is one space for every 2 employees. And the other calculation is one space per 500 square feet of building. And it says whichever is greater. So our request is for the lesser calculation there. And if we calculate the buildings, it would need about 48 parking spaces for the greater requirement. We're providing 36 spaces that are on the exterior. And these buildings also have roll-up doors for a garage space inside the building. If we're able to count those roll-up doors with the spaces inside the building, that provide an additional 12 spots, which gets us to the 48 on the larger calculation. So that's what we're requesting, is if you would count the interior parking spaces, which gets us to the higher count of 48. Or let us go with the lesser count for the one space per every 2 employees. And I'd also like to add, the owner has owned and operated similar type facilities. I think some of staff's concern is, if we're operating like a strip center, but that is not the intended use. Those would be excluded by the lease agreements, and based on the owner's experience of owning and operating similar type facilities, we think the current layout is overparked for what the intended use is based on prior experience.
Harry, you want to walk us through the staff overview?
The intent is the construction of a commercial flex space. The current parking that is required is 48 parking spaces per code 140405F. Proposed parking is 36, which is about three spaces per unit. They have met all the public notice requirements. Comments from the public have been received. This parcel is located on East Centerton Boulevard behind Jiffy Lube and Diamond Car Wash, east of neighborhood Walmart. Across the street to the south is Greenhouse Plaza and Bentonville city limits. This project proposes 2 11,888 square foot buildings for a total of 23,776 square feet of flex space. The building to the east is proposed to have 6 tenant spaces, which includes 1 bathroom, 1 office space / admin space, and a garage space with a bay door. The building to the west is currently just a shell with 6 bay doors and is being built out for the tenants. The applicant has a concurrent large-scale development application, Development 2403, that is pending approval contingent on the approval of the parking reduction variance. They are requesting a reduction of 12 parking spaces from the required 48, which is 36. Would you like me to go over the findings or do that after public?
I'll cover the findings. Any questions or comments from any of the commissioners before we open it up to the public? I would then entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Mr. Jerry, I make a motion to open public hearing.
Second.
Motion to open the public hearing. Is anyone opposed? We are now open to the public. If anyone wishes to speak, have any questions, comments, concerns in regards to the variance request for a reduction of parking spaces at 1812 East Centerton Boulevard. We ask that you come to the podium, state your name and address, and any questions, comments, or concerns. Second call for anyone who wishes to speak. And third and final call.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing in a second. Is anyone opposed? Any questions or comments before we go through the fact finding things we need to consider? The first one, that the preservation of intent. That the variance, if granted, is consistent with the purpose and intent of the regulations for the district in which development is located. No variance shall have the effect of permitting a use in any district that is not stated permitted use, accessory use, or conditional use of that particular district. The applicant's response, the variance meets and exceeds the lesser of the two parking requirements in the warehousing and wholesaling parking section. In addition, the buildings have 6 roll-up doors each, which can be an additional 12 interior parking spaces for vehicles to meet the 48 space requirement of 1 space per 500 square feet. The staff findings, the intent of the C2 zoning district is to allow for appropriate parking for highway commercial uses. Flex space is typically used for warehousing and wholesaling, and Centerton code requires at least 1 parking space for every 500 square feet of floor area, or for 1 each of 2 employees, whichever is greater. Centerton code for retail uses requires 1 space per 200 square feet. And due to this being zoned C2, a retail type business could locate in this development. Opinion is that the interior spaces should not count toward the available parking. There is no way to ensure that interior spaces will be open for parking. If someone wants to park in a regular building, are there other regulations that have to be met?
Yeah, the CO2 and stuff like that, fire.
So for the fire code, depending and I'd have to dig through the code to find out exactly what it is. So if it's over a certain size vehicle, it's considered a commercial vehicle, the building has to be sprinkled, otherwise you cannot park inside. I don't know if that applies or affects them, but it has the potential. So therefore it would fall under, it would have to be a sprinkler building.
If I just park 12 of my trucks in there, then probably not, or does it depend on what I'm using them for?
Size of the vehicle. And I have to go back and look to see what they're considering a commercial vehicle is. I know buses, transport, that kind of stuff. Obviously your large wreckers, semis, that kind of stuff, you would have to have a sprinkler building. That's the only other requirement that I can see from my side. But there is that caveat there.
Thank you.
We talk about the 2 different parking requirements,
Yes.
1 per 500, 1 per 200, right?
1 per 500, 1 per every 2 employees.
Or whichever is greater.
Yeah.
So what's the requirement for that code based on their layout, and what's the requirement for the 200?
I can't quite hear you.
What's the requirement for each, based on their layout, what's the requirement for each code? Like how many parking stalls do they need to meet each code? Is that on here?
Yeah, the 1 per 500 square feet is 48 parking spaces.
Okay.
Then the lesser is the 36.
The 1 per 2.
asking about the retail?
We have no idea
Yeah,
how
yeah.
many employees.
Right,
So,
see, based on square footage, right?
right.
And that's the
And that's
36.
what we've done on other flex space. On some, we've looked at even, like some already have like the office space identified. So we've done 1 per 200 on that space, then 1 per 500 on the warehouse space. And then Tara's gone through and created a list of, so that you can kind of see those uses, because that's what we kind of, we considered when we were looking at the findings, well, it could be this, it could be that. So,
Well, their response says they exceed the lesser of the 2.
But the code says you have to do
it's
it
the
the greater.
greater of.
Right.
There's no lesser. This is what they're asking.
Well,
They're asking for the lesser of,
Right.
but the code states the greater.
Or if the interior spaces could be counted towards that amount.
okay. But you're not they're not sprinkled, right?
It's zone C2. Have there been any other conditions put on it as far as what it is limited to? Because they're asking for flex space, but is there,
With that, then they would be allowed to do what is permitted in C2.
at any time?
Any conditional use that they would want in there, they would have to come and request that through a conditional use permit. So that's why those are broken out. You can see the permitted uses and those would be allowed without question. Or they would not have to come back to us to do those. They would have to meet fire code, building, so forth when they built them out for that specific purpose. But and the conditional and these, Tara went through and put everything on there, but I did pull out a few things that, you know, like a golf course. Clearly, airport, things like that, that clearly they wouldn't be using them for, so. There may be some other things on here that wouldn't be applicable, but
Would they be able to talk to the neighbors about a shared parking agreement?
there is not, but there's the car wash.
Right. Probably not a lot of opportunity there.
And
Are they-
they really don't have any spare.
What are your thoughts around allowing the inside parking? Maybe we'll start there.
I don't see that because the building had to be open for somebody to go in and out. I mean, you know, you couldn't be, doors couldn't be locked in order for them to use parking.
I think if you look at all the uses permitted in C2, there may come a time where indoor parking is not part of that use.
I don't think so either.
And now you've taken away that parking spot, but you know, but you're still allowed by code to use it as something else inside there.
But technically they, it's all the code. They,
That doesn't mean at that point because they had a variance.
no, but I'm saying there's nothing stopping them from using the interior space as a parking space.
No.
How do you police that? I mean, if you don't sprinkler it and somebody comes in and wants to start putting commercial vehicles in there. You're not suddenly gonna go out and sprinkler it or
Yeah.
come here and tell the fire department, hey, FYI. I mean, how do you police it?
You can get their certificate.
I'm just thinking for safety purposes and we have other businesses right next to it.
Yeah, and I always have to remind us, our job's not to be the police, but you have to think about, you know, I think their intent is more around regular vehicles because of the regulation of the numbers. So I think they're really talking more about just everyday use. Do we want to allow them to count? And that's what I think we need to consider. Right. More than just, I asked the question, more than get into the technical details, do we want to allow them to use it?
Yeah.
We want to allow them to count 12 spaces.
I don't think so.
If it's a warehouse use, then you're not gonna fill up a warehouse with a truck.
But if they have other, I think what we need to think about is if they fill the others up with businesses that would require more than the 36 parking spaces, then according to the code, then those people wouldn't have any place to park necessarily. Is
And that's what I'm
what we
saying.
need to think about.
Turn that into a gym, which you could under C2. 30 parking spots for a gym ain't gonna work.
They're kind of, in my opinion, they're kind of shooting themselves in their foot.
What's that? In your
Kind of on the, I said, in my opinion, that's on them.
If I'm looking at my opinion, it's what's causing the hardship. It's their design that's causing the hardship. It's not letting them meet their code. So that's not our.
That's question 3.
Sure. We're gonna get there in a second. We're gonna get there in a second, Joey, or, sorry, Tony, we're gonna get there in a second.
I'm not a fan of allowing the indoors to count towards their numbers.
Okay. In the preservation of intent, I guess, we don't normally talk about parking spaces. I was just reading back through it to figure out if we can make any, real use out of it, and it's a little difficult on parking, in my opinion as well. I mean, I think we can have that discussion, we can talk about it. I think we're gonna get into a little bit more, but I think our biggest thing is to decide whether we want to allow them to use the 2 or the 12 inside. I think I heard a majority say no. So I don't think, there's a proven point here with the preservation of intent with trying to do something other than the required parking spaces. I guess is the way that I would say it. Would you guys agree with that, or you guys have a different opinion?
Agreed.
Okay, so I'm gonna go on to the next one. Exceptional circumstances, that exceptional, extraordinary, or unusual conditions or circumstances applying to the lot, parcel, structure, or intended use that do not apply to other properties or uses in the same district, which are unique to the individual property under consideration. The applicant's response: the property is north of an existing Jiffy Lube service station and car wash, which have standalone parking on their respective sites. The dead-end location of the property is not connected to the neighborhood to the north or to the Walmart neighborhood market to the west, so cross-traffic connections are not anticipated. The intended use of the structures as flex space is directed more towards contracting type businesses where employees collect materials in the morning and travel to job sites. Some space is available for offices and showrooms. The buildings are not anticipated to be major traffic generators, which is more typical of C2 zoning. The staff findings: without meeting the minimum requirement of 1 per 500 square feet for uses stated above, staff does not feel there will be sufficient parking for work vehicles and or personal vehicles. Insufficient parking would lead to people parking in grass, fire lane, and access drives. The parcel does not have an exceptional or extraordinary circumstance that would affect the intended use and parking requirements. Other developments of proposed flex space were required to meet the 1 per 500 square foot parking requirement. I agree with the staff findings on this one, but we'll open it up to any comments or questions that any of the commissioners might have that would be otherwise.
The zoning, the parking table, we just had a. We'll pull that back up. I'm just looking for where warehousing really falls in the use. Is that this zoning? Is that a different zoning?
Well, on flex space, we typically have considered them as warehouse type because they have the bay door, they have deliveries. So that is like the most appropriate parking. Otherwise,
agree.
we have, I mean, they do
I'm talking about zoning though.
the zoning.
Warehousing more industrial or commercial by our code?
It is more, it's in the industrial
Industrial.
as being allowed. But with the flood space, they are limited to the commercial use.
Gotcha.
But the 500.
But we're taking the
we know why
500
we
from the
were
warehouse.
going 1 per 300, 1 square
The
feet.
cost of building flex space is becoming more and more popular for commercial use, not necessarily industrial use. Especially where we live, because we don't have enough of it.
We also, and Tara did prepare a table to kind of what other cities or other developments in other cities, kind of what what it worked out to as per square footage. Parking spaces per square footage. So, Springdale was much higher on those. But Rogers, Lowell, and Bentonville, they're all around that 300 to 500.
The 36 that they're asking for is somewhere around 650. If you want to compare numbers to that.
I was looking at the size, I was looking at
I did that
square,
about 10 minutes ago.
I was looking at square foot size, right? You said about 25,000 square feet,
It's 23.
23. So, I was looking at the 23 and then the 28.
Almost 24.
We've all looked at that a whole lot today.
So, sorry, but I was just curious about that, but yeah, I agree. I don't think there's any exceptional circumstances.
And related to exceptional circumstances, agreed.
Okay.
I would like to add that Rogers has recently waived their parking requirements and has put it on the developer to provide enough parking for their intended use. So as the owner and developer. Rogers.
Agreed. Unfortunately, that's a different conversation than the variance.
The third thing to consider is hardship, not grounds for variance, that the special conditions and or circumstances do not result from the intended or proposed actions of the applicant. No variance may be granted solely on the basis of economic gain or loss. The applicant's response: space on the site is further constrained by the necessity for a fire turnaround on the north of the site, which is the terminus for shared driveway to the southern parcels, and an existing sewer force main and easement on the west side of the site. The design also has a retaining wall north of the property to maintain existing grade for a 13-foot planted buffer to provide screening between the subject property and the northern residences. These site features further reduce available area for additional parking. The staff findings: by reducing the footprint of the buildings, the parking requirement could be met. It's the staff's opinion the existing conditions on the site do not impact the applicant's ability to meet the parking requirements. This is probably another one of those where I would agree with staff as well, but I will open it up for you guys for discussion.
Yeah, I didn't see on the drawing where the design was limited. It couldn't be adjusted so far as square foot size.
There's. Put an existing, sorry,
Yeah, and you could
utility easement here, the force main.
park over that,
Yeah.
but you're picking up 2 spots, extending that hammerhead. That's not gonna get you close.
And then back here is a retaining wall and a privacy fence. And they have drainage here.
So I'm hearing you guys would agree there's no hardship. Correct. Preservation of property rights: that literal interpretation of the provisions of this ordinance would deprive the applicant of substantial rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the terms of this ordinance. The applicant's response: when counting the 12 garage door spaces as available interior parking, the greater code requirement of 48 spaces can be met. Additional surface parking would exceed the minimum parking required and is believed to be an unnecessary excess for the intended use of flex space buildings. The staff findings: the staff does not find that denial of this variance would result in the deprivation of property rights, as the applicant can still develop the property as a C2 development. The interior parking spaces will not be considered toward the parking requirement. And again, I would lean towards staff's findings here, but open it up to the commissioners for any additional discussion or disagreement.
But I mean, it sounds like we've asked for 500 on everything.
Yep. The last thing for us to consider is the absence of detriment, that granting the variance requested will not create substantial detriment to adjacent property or that will materially impair or be contrary to the purpose of the and spirit of the chapter or the public interest. The applicant's response: given the dead end condition for the site and no cross connections, overflow parking impacts to the neighbors are not anticipated. The Jiffy Lube service station and car wash to the south have self-contained parking, and the Walmart neighborhood market to the west does not have a drive aisle connection, which cannot be met due to the elevation difference between the lots and the location of an existing sewer force main on the west side of the site. Landscape buffers are provided on the north and east sides of the site to provide separation from the back and side yards of the existing residences. These buffers further reduce the available area for additional parking. The staff's findings, the reduction of the 12 parking spaces will not cause damage to the adjacent properties. However, due to the unknown factor of how many parking spaces are needed, depending on the type of tenants, this may cause the need for overflow parking on adjacent properties or along access drives. And again, I think this is one where I would have to lean on the staff's findings. Does anybody have any comments in regards to that?
I mean, I think if there was a parking issue, there would be detriment to not only their property, but surrounding property, blocking fire lanes. Potentially parking on both sides of that road, where there's just not space. I disagree.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments from any of the commissioners?
I don't think it has been noted at this point, but in all the, maybe it has, and I missed it, but all of the other flex spaces we've done, we made the requirement 1 for 500 and 1 per 200 for any retail.
Yeah, and I mentioned that to Jeff just a second ago, but yeah, 100%.
So
100%.
this is what we're trying to accomplish in the city. This is what we need to continue with. There's nothing that is evident as to why we need to do something different.
Okay. If there are no questions or comments, then I would entertain a motion. There's suggested language in your packet to move forward for either a grant or deny.
This is Joey, I move to grant the request by CEI Engineering to reduce the parking space requirement from 48 to 36. And that is contingent upon any other code requirements being met.
John, second.
We have a motion and a second to grant. Samantha, if you will do a roll call vote for me, please.
Ben Lewis.
No.
Ron Sessoms.
No.
Tony Davis.
No.
Brandon Swoboda.
No.
Jerry Harris.
No.
Ed Langford.
No.
Devin Murphy. Joey Engel.
No.
Jeff Safer.
I'm a no as well.
You don't agree?
I mean, I think the reasons are the fact that we're gonna keep this in seed throughout the buildings that we've approved. So if we have maintained 1 per 500 for each one of the buildings and or 1 per 200 for each one of the flex spaces that we've already approved, consistency would be one of our reasons. I don't think there was any proof in in a hardship. The piece of property was designed, I think to Craig's point, as it was, and we talked about it as it was designed for the buffers behind, having the buffers on the side, due to the fact that there were some housing and some other things. So I didn't see any sort of proof tonight of a burden because of that. So those would be the reasons that I would state. And we'll have another meeting next time just to go through the minutes. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn the Board of Zoning Adjustments.
Joey, I'll make a motion to close the meeting for August 2024 Centerton Board of Zoning Adjustment.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right. Next is the Centerton Planning Commission for August 20th, 2024, and I will call that to order with a roll call.
Brandon Swoboda.
Here.
Ben Lewis. Tony Davis. Ron Sessoms. Harry Harris. Rick Inkler.
Here.
Kevin Murphy.
Here.
Joey Engel.
Here.
Jeff Safer.
Here as well. First thing on the agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes from our meeting of 8/6/2020.
On a motion to approve the minutes from 8/6/24.
Second. Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right, no admin approvals this time. First thing under new business is the development 2212 Skylight Mini Storage request for extension of their preliminary approval. It is 301 Greenhouse Road. It is zone C2, and it's 5 acres. The applicant here, just to give us a quick rundown of what happened and what you're requesting.
Yes, sir. Patrick Floyd with Half Associates, I'm here on behalf of Skylight Storage. This was approved right around a year ago. Right around ending the first sewer moratorium, which caused some delays. And then whenever that got released from the health department, we got that approval. Client went to get the financials in order and it wasn't making sense yet. So since then, he's finally got it ready to move forward. He's got S&K on board. It started, we didn't need to ask this extension. So before you guys for that extension, 6 months, I believe that gives us time to do grading permits and gets to construction.
Caleb, would you want to give us a staff overview?
Yes, so this parcel does have a conditional use for storage. That was January 17th, 2023, and then was it amended on April 4th, 2023. The preliminary plans for this project were approved by the Planning Commission on June 20th of 2023. This is a small refresher. This development proposed 5 storage buildings and 1 office and storage building. A pre-construction meeting was held on May 20th, 2024. However, no construction has taken place on site since that meeting was held. They haven't submitted a grading permit or had their P&P inspections to begin work on site. The developer has stated that construction has not begun due to a scheduling conflict with the contractor. They are requesting a 6-month extension for preliminary approval. I'm happy to go back through the details of the project if you guys need a refresher.
Shouldn't be anything new that we would need to reconsider on this.
No, they're meeting everything. Their adjacent street agreement signed in the packet. So this one was good to go. They just didn't start construction.
Grading permit constitutes as starting construction, right? No?
Not here. We have a subdivision that has a grading permit and it's not even, it is just now finishing up addressing comments from staff, so.
But if they haven't approved large scale and pull a grading permit, that doesn't constitute as starting construction?
They have to have a pre-con and be released.
Do they need another pre-con?
Nothing is changing on their IFC, so I would imagine no.
It all depends how much longer it's gonna be till they start and if there's any changes.
Okay.
Kind of how we make.
Sounds like talk to Rain before you want to start. Is 6 months good? Patrick, I'm asking.
I'm sorry. That was the request, so. I think the Skylight Storage, they said 6 months was gonna be plenty.
Okay.
I've seen emails to S&K and they're geared up to put the BMPs in place and move forward, so I think that's all.
Any other?
We hate to put it out too far. We're getting ready to approve development code changes. So there's some developments that are even like back in 2021 that are still requesting extensions. So we just hate to put it out another year because a lot could change in a year.
I might get them in gear. Let them know we got some code changes coming. That might.
Any other questions or comments from any of the commissioners? If there's not, then I would entertain a motion for a 6-month extension for development 2212.
Donna, motion to approve development 2212. Preliminary approval.
Wait a second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right, thanks, Patrick. All right. On the agenda is the development 2403, the Centerton Flex Space preliminary plans. You guys still want to go through any preliminary plans or you want to come back and potentially have some further discussions?
think we'll come back based since the variance was denied.
We're happy to go through it if you want. I mean, we'll take the time, but if there's potential change, then just let us know. I mean, it might be good to have at least an initial conversation with us. But I'll leave it up to you. I mean, it's,
Is there anything else that you guys need to discuss?
I don't think so, but we can walk through the plans if there's any for staff.
there were minimal staff, but if you just walk us through what you guys were thinking and maybe there's some way to be creative. How's that?
So the project is fairly straightforward. Talk about the buildings on either side, drive aisle in the middle, with the turnaround on the north side. Dumpster access is on the north side, so it's green view. The detention is underground under the parking area, so that's probably the most atypical thing that you see in the site plan. It's the magenta rectangle that you see there. So that would collect the roof water and the parking lot water and discharge up that southwest corner of the site. There's an existing drainage ditch and shared drainage easement for these three properties. We would tie in there. We're trying to keep existing trees along the east side and the north side by the residences, so we're putting grading there.
Can you tell me what the difference in the buildings are? These look split over here. That one doesn't show any interior walls. What's the thought on that?
So the the eastern building will be subdivided into 2,000 square foot units. And the western building is a shell, so if there's one larger tenant, or if they want to further split it up.
Is there any thought to reducing the footprint of that larger building since it doesn't have any interior limitations? It would then free up some space, would reduction of square footage, but then it also frees up space to have more parking around.
Economically, it challenges the project to lose additional square footage. We did seek a shared detention pond with the neighbors, which was denied. So that's why we went underground with the detention.
I will tell you, a typical comment is that's a lot of parking spaces in a row without an island. But that's not gonna help your case.
Initially, when we reviewed this with staff, there seemed to be some support, but I understand the parking concerns.
Can you speak into the mic? It's very hard to hear.
Couldn't hear Patrick either. Is it on?
I just ask, is it on? I don't know that it's on.
Sounds like it's on.
Kind of.
I think it's on.
Give us some karaoke.
Not sure y'all want to hear
Can
that.
you hear me now? That's too bad. Yeah,
I just wish I had a good parking.
No, I'm trying to do something.
Hey, now we're gonna check.
That's a,
I get it. Typically, you would do maybe reach out for some shared parking, but those type of businesses in front
Right.
there, you can't.
let me ask a question and without even talking to fire first, I don't know, would anybody, if the buildings are sprinkled, would anybody entertain interior spots? I don't know that that really changes a lot of people's opinions, but I'm just asking the question and try to.
But if they all get filled up,
I know.
then there's not 12 parking spaces available.
I was stuck on the intent. That it being C2, just because you intend to park in there now doesn't mean you can in the future.
Right.
No, that's.
Are there any other questions or concerns from the commission? Site plan.
I don't have any.
No. Sarah, did you want to just take us through real quick, just so we, in case something triggers our.
The proposed use is commercial flex space. There's not gonna be any right-of-way dedication because it already exists. And the parking is with the variance for 36 spaces to ADA with the variance 2402. The drainage report has been approved and the adjacent street agreement has also been approved. The parcel is located on East Emerson Boulevard. It's behind the Jiffy Lube and Diamond Car Wash and east of the neighborhood Walmart. Across the street, to the south is the Greenhouse Plaza and the Bentonville city limits. Currently, the project is proposing two 11,888 square foot buildings for a total of 23,776 square feet of flex space. The building to the east is proposed 6 tenant spaces which includes 1 bathroom, 1 office, an admin space, and a garage space with a bay door. And currently, the building to the west is a proposed shell with possible division in the future for tenant spaces. The applicant is also proposing the variance that we went through for the parking reduction from 48 parking spaces to 36 parking spaces with 2 ADA spaces. Would you like me to continue to staff findings?
No, they look pretty straightforward.
Are the trees in the rear enough to for screening? Well, I see a lot of shrubs too. I don't know how tall they get, but
There's a wall back there?
For a height.
there is a wall. Which way is the wall going?
There's a.
Down or up?
The properties to the north are much higher. So it's going up.
So we'll have a 6-foot privacy fence. There's an existing tree line.
Yeah,
We have taller shrubs in front of the,
yeah. How high is the wall?
it's about,
I don't recall.
it's about 3 feet, plus or minus.
The whole site behind 5 feet higher.
Yeah.
On the area.
And how high are the shrubs?
Doesn't say on the plans. though. That might be something to look into, just the screening requirements on the rear. I know the trees are good, but.
They are a taller screening shrub.
Also to the east, to the west is the Walmart parking lot. East. That's undeveloped right now.
We're trying to limit grading close to those existing trees to keep those.
Okay,
And then there's that residence to the
Show.
east where you can see the fence line.
Yeah, can you just show them
That's
the trees that you're keeping on the east? Are they on here? I didn't see them sticking out.
We have is the outline of the canopy.
Gotcha.
They're on the neighboring.
Oh, then why are you limiting grading if they're on the neighbor's property?
We're in the drip line of those trees. We do have a juniper.
That's gonna count then. I don't think that counts for screening if they're on somebody else's property.
We are adding a privacy fence there as well.
Do I? Yeah.
There's existing privacy fence on their site.
The neighbors, it looks like.
That's what I'm saying. So the fence they proposed overlaps. You gotta maintain the screen with vegetation and tree.
trees are on the other side.
So there's existing screening for the existing use that's there. So if someone else comes and develops that, they know what's behind them. Get them to do the screening at that point. You try to put, I don't have any other line, you can put on roof edges, it won't survive.
Just trying to brainstorm on any parking.
Yeah, I'm still stuck on the parking. I don't know if you took one of the retail shops on either end and use that for warehouse intent instead of retail intent, does that change 200, 500? Does that change the part number?
That makes it worse. doesn't it?
I mean, a lot worse.
Makes it worse.
500. 200.
Warehouse is 1 for 500, retail is 1 for 200, so that makes it worse.
Yeah, but you're no longer using the 200
Where do you, square
We're
foot?
swapping 500 for 200.
We're on the 500 now. On all of it, I thought we used 200 for the retail, 500 on all.
There's no space defined. It's the problem. Okay.
Also typically we require trees, parking lot islands.
Yeah, that was my comment.
Maybe that's where some of the flexibility comes in.
Yeah.
I still don't feel good about parking in a building. As part of the,
So on your staff findings with the, was islands not discussed here?
When it was first submitted, they did not have enough parking spaces to warrant an additional island. Because it was 10 parking spaces and then there's an island at the end of the parking. But with the additional parking, it would be required.
There's something to think about. And the staff is pleased with their proposal for the fencing and the vegetation for the neighbors on all sides or not?
Unless they're gonna change their mind.
Well, that's what,
Unless someone changes their mind, yes.
Typically, if it's undeveloped, then we would put some type of buffer on that side,
some kind of what?
buffering on that side.
I don't think counting neighbors' trees for screening is.
There's a fence there, right? They're putting a
There
fence.
is, there is.
Thing 6 foot privacy fence and trees along that line. Right.
You can see
It
two.
won't survive.
You said typically we require both, and the trees were in discussion are the neighbors, which most likely won't survive.
No, putting new ones in aren't going to survive. If you put new ones in along that buffer at the end.
So, are you over the landscaping?
Good luck.
Why, I'm confused, why would they not survive?
The amount of sun they're gonna get and competing for water underneath the other drip edge from the other one. Cause the drip edge from the trees that are on the other side.
Yeah.
They're quite large, they're extending beyond where you'd be planting trees.
I'm more concerned just about like what the requirement is. I mean, if you're gonna build in Centerton and the requirement is to have a fencing and vegetation there, then you need to have
Do
fencing
the
and vegetation there.
giant stuff. There's other species you can look at that would
Yeah,
flourish.
I mean, that's. Again, if we're,
Consistency, right?
yeah, it's consistency is what we need to have, and if that's what's required, then that's what's required.
Get a variance.
So,
How many try?
venture to guess you need to relook at your landscaping plan. Would be my recommendation.
I agree.
So I ventures to guess, or we need to also question lighting. Staff pleased with lighting? I mean, it says that we'll do with the lighting plan.
Yeah, they're wall packs on the building. They don't exceed past the property line to go over into the residential.
Excellent.
There's no additional lighting on the side.
There's one at the very front, the entrance.
Right here.
Is there a certain requirement for the number of parking spaces? That requires a certain number of lights in order to illuminate those spaces?
No, typically we'll get a photometric plan, so
Do we have that yet, or?
that's.
The wall pack lights.
Find it because they have it.
Since the building's so close to the wall pack lights.
I'm talking right now.
Like a photometric plan to make sure there's. no-
Which they provided, and I think you all were.
Yeah,
We did add an additional light pole there at the entrance. Bring that up since it's further away from the wall packs.
The wall packs shine the rest of that. Yeah.
wish we had a good solution for you. Guess we'll see whenever it comes back.
Do we need to table this?
Yes, we should probably
That's
table
the
it.
table. I said I don't have to resubmit it.
Alright.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'll entertain a motion to table development 2403.
And I motion to table development 2403, Centerton Flex Place.
Motion and a second to table. Is anyone opposed? All right, next on the agenda is MSI 2406, Post Office Addition. They're requesting a building addition. It's at 100 Monroe Street. It is zone C2, 2.26 acres. Post office owns it. The engineer applicant here to give us an overview. What you guys are requesting.
Michael Johnson, architect, Architecture Plus out of Fort Smith. Summed it up. In addition to the post office.
Diane?
Get to the site plan. All right, they are proposing to add 1,672 square feet of additional workspace on the north side of the existing post office, so it would be right here in this area. The existing post office is 4,260 square feet, and it was constructed in 2009. And of course, with the continued growth of the area, they need some more space for workspace. This will not be open to the public type thing. It would be, you know, mail sorting and for those type of things. The existing public access will remain open even as the temporary construction continues on with the project. The access will remain the same. They are adding an additional temporary construction access on this side as to not hinder any of the current post office traffic and work. And it is a federal project, so therefore any adherence to any of the comments we've had is done of good faith on their part and not required. But they are adding, we're not getting islands for parking. I tried. I said, no, post office isn't doing it. So it was tried, but they are adding trees here along Monroe Street that do not exist currently. And they're adding street trees here along Centerton Boulevard. Also, there's one that'll need to be moved because there's a box there in the way. The like I said, the additions on the north side, Jason Street, the property is located at the southeast corner of West Centerton Boulevard and Monroe, across Monroe from Domino's. The master street plan, of course, designates West Centerton Boulevard as a major arterial with 100 feet of right of way, and Monroe Street is 50 feet of right of way. It's just a local street. It appears that only, I don't know what happened to my 40 feet of existing right of way for Centerton Boulevard exists. So they will need to do like another 10 feet. And I have asked them on my most recent set of comments if they could please show where that right of way line is and then shift things as necessary. And of course, the highway department is to be widening this section of Centerton Boulevard, hopefully in the very near future. We're hoping by 2026. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed over here. And they will be installing a 6-foot sidewalk on the west side of Centerton Boulevard, and that might have to be coordinated with the post office and with the highway department widening. Access, they're gonna keep the same access that's always been there, except for just the temporary construction access that is being added. Parking along this side is not going to be changing. Along the west side of the property, they are adding additional parking to the south, so they did have to remove a couple trees that existed there. But again, they are adding additional ones, and they are meeting the code requirements for one space per 200 feet for office, one space for 200 square feet for retail, and one per 300 for retail, so big for office, so they have them both covered. The trash enclosure, they are not proposing any changes at this time. It is currently chain link with privacy slats. So I don't know if you guys would like to request that the privacy slats be replaced. That is something that's kind of up to you guys to decide, because they're not wanting any changes on that right now. And like I said, with the landscaping, they are adding trees. They are moving some light poles around, but they still don't have any issues with the kind of light pollution all contained to their site. And the drainage, there's actually a pond located over here just to the east of the property. And Alan has requested that they add a little drainage sediment basin, and they have agreed to do that, and Alan has approved that change to the detention. Other than, a couple of staff comments that remain, it's the regulations, so they are giving trees.
Questions or comments from any of the commissioners?
I got three.
Alright.
For our, what's the parking space maximum before an island? Is it-
I don't think it's specifically called out.
We don't have code requirement
It's
for it.
not.
Right, but we
Policy.
can implement landscape
Right, and they were asked to do 1 per 10, and
1 per 10. I think that's fair. So what's the rationale on green space island in the parking?
Maintenance.
Maintenance?
Maintenance and potential danger to their vehicles.
Really? Okay. So I would like to see that again to maintain consistency. And then we don't have any trees along this southern boundary where we are adjacent to residential development here. Great job on the north. That looks awesome. And the west there along Monroe. I think it would be prudent to ask for some landscaping to the south against the residential. And then that begs the question on the dumpster too. Do we have any pictures of what that looks like currently? No,
I could pull up an aerial.
I thought our code required.
you got a picture? Okay, prepared.
It does.
Also, the sidewalk on the
Yeah,
south.
for sure.
It's all put together.
Functional.
You go and see.
Sorry, what was that?
Walk on the outside is supposed to be a 10-foot sidewalk. Is that what's proposed?
It's 6 in here.
South side,
Supposed to be
2.
10 foot on that
south
side.
side of one, too.
Oh. So what's up with do we have any sort of preliminary design from RDOT? We do.
Yes.
Are they,
50%.
are they obtaining right away?
I believe.
They will when they get to it.
Right.
I'd say they've pushed this all the way to the 27 letting, so it's not starting anytime recent. They have to work on getting all the right of ways and then all the utility relocations, which are substantial.
Sure.
So they're not even gonna do much for 3 years.
Yay. Well, my question comes in on the sidewalk, like,
I don't believe the sidewalk was on the 50% plans. I think they're just concerned really with the layout, but I'm not certain anymore.
I don't think they would propose a sidewalk, right?
They had it on the.
Yeah.
when we
Oh,
had
actually-
the
We have an
public
agreement.
officials meeting.
We have an agreement with RDOT. And it's 10 foot on the south, and that's what we had Domino's do. And it's 5 feet on the north.
I don't know, something 5. So now you say they're doing 5 and we're paying for the other 5, I think is what the agreement was. With an extra, I think. I think there is an agreement in place for the sidewalk.
Well, I'm wondering if we don't do the same thing here. But you said Domino's did like a fee in lieu for half of it, built a 5-foot functional sidewalk, but. Is that what you said?
I believe that's what the agreement is, that RDOT will buy 5 and we'll have to pay for the other 5.
Okay,
Didn't get a fee in lieu for the other half of the sidewalk. They did a 5-foot sidewalk. And it was understood that RDOT will do the other 5.
gotcha. So
I don't understand that.
RDOT's gonna rip it out and then do a 10. That, yeah, I don't, I don't know. About that.
Hmm.
Just gonna have
Take that
to-
one.
Yeah, they're doing.
Mhm.
Are these, this tree and fence line that are showing here, they're not on the landscape plan, or is that not on the property?
They're probably, what's on the property line on the south you're talking about?
Yeah, on the south side.
Is a 6-foot tall wood privacy fence down the whole length of that.
Yeah, there's like a 30-foot oak tree right there too.
Trees
It's the
Yeah,
big old
that-
trees.
That's why I wonder if those trees were on your property.
There's some that are on both.
Okay.
Oh, I'd claim them. I mean,
Yeah. That,
Count them.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd claim
we need
them,
to count them.
put them on there.
Yeah, yeah.
Cause the south side looks like there's 2 trees and I think there are more than that.
Yeah.
We need to see that.
Yeah, I think you should quantify those and count them. That's a nice tree, like, no need to plant extras, you know. Where you don't need to, but
I was trying to give Diane as much as I could.
yeah.
It did crack me up and they said, no, the post office is not gonna do that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Not the post office. Uriel, it was hiding from me. I kept driving around and getting lost.
Can we move the customer service desk just a little bit? That line gets long.
And the gravel staging, is that just temporary for construction?
It's construction plus they still have to deliver. And we're gonna take, well, that's not that south side parking lot, in essence, is gonna go away for a period of time because of having to regrade it. So they're still got to figure out a way to bring their vehicles in. And the intent is to keep them separate from the customer.
Sure.
Yeah.
But at the end of the project, when it's.
It goes
completed,
away, it's all grass again, yeah.
See those big trees right there?
Well, those four on the left and the one right by that white car.
There are a lot of
counted.
Doesn't count it, but that whole row right there, there's a whole
Everything
row
from that orange car down is not counted, so.
right there.
Some of those trees might go away, you might keep a couple.
Yeah, all those right there,
Okay.
3 trees.
Those will all be staying.
It looks like there's nothing there on the
Yeah.
plan, so that's why I was discussing that.
Gotcha.
I think the dumpster's okay. It's one of the better ones that I've
Yeah.
seen. So
I just want to give you that
I
option.
understand. It's actually presentable and looks good. I went by there today. I didn't even notice it, so it's
Federal funding.
Where is it? Right here.
Yeah.
Kind of shut that off.
Well, that's fine. It's-
That's right here.
Any other questions or comments?
Everybody out on the island, is it just me?
I think you're on the island, man. I
I
think.
think you're on the island.
No, I mean, I think, I didn't understand you were so quick to say no to it. I was just curious why, here when you were asking. I mean,
I wanna
is it not
maintain.
a code requirement?
It's that it's a federal project, and so they decide whether they're going to adhere or not.
Did we decide whether they get a CO or not?
No, we don't. Building doesn't even.
Yeah, I mean, I was hesitant. I mean, I want my.
Decide on paying their taxes.
Too many negative things.
I don't want
Just
to.
some-
They can keep it.
Yeah, I'll pay those too.
But I am curious, is it
Get my mail.
a cost issue?
If you're talking about the trees again, the islands of trees.
It's an island, cause you got a row of
They see those as
two.
again, maintenance and also potential, if the storms, they see them as potential damaging to building and or vehicles.
It's a big tree if it hits your building.
Again, you gotta remember, they park a lot of vehicles. You know, those mail vehicles and they.
So really on something like this, where we're expanding a building, I mean, the effects are parking, which they've satisfied, correct? Lighting. Which they've satisfied as well.
Sorry. Yes,
Choked up on it.
I don't want.
Technically on any other project. It would need to come to code. Up to code.
As far as lighting and parking, yes.
The only thing we're really not doing is the island. That.
Yeah.
Technically, there's one long one there.
I
don't want to be in his defense, but technically there is a long one.
I will say this, we came in early and met with the staff and they let us know early on. Several of the things they said yes to and one of them they said no to. So, that's kind of how they work and they want to be a good neighbor. But just as the early comment was, I don't want to throw this out, they can do whatever they want to do.
Again, in an effort of consistency,
Yeah.
or I'm out.
No.
I wanna ask for it, see if it gets there.
You can do whatever you wanna do.
I'd like to get my mail next week.
I just want to get the right mail is what I wanted to say, but, I will, if there's nothing else, then I would entertain a motion for the post office edition.
This company will make a motion to approve, the post office ECMS one, MSI 24-06.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed?
I'd like to see a landscape island. Thank you.
All right,
Well,
thank you.
Thank you very much. That island takes up.
It does.
to break up the 22 freaking parking spots.
I've seen that paved.
All right,
I've seen that paved.
keeping us on track. Next on the agenda, subdivision 2121 Meadow Ridge, request for extension of the preliminary approval. It's at the northwest corner of Keller and Seba. It's zoned R3, it's 43 acres.
What kind of landscape islands you got for us tonight?
You'll give us an approval, we'll put them every 50 feet.
Oh, dang.
Just kidding. If my developer agrees to it.
As long as you're gonna move Seba Road, a little bit more curve to it.
Years ago in Cabot, we had a city engineer that thought it would be a good idea to slow down traffic, to take 55-gallon drums, fill them full of water, and stagger them down one of our busiest streets. He didn't keep his job very long.
Worked out very well, did it?
That becomes a challenge then. I mean, that's just.
All right, what do you got, Tim?
We are back to get a 6-month extension on this approval that you gave us July of last year. We had a couple of comments we've been going back and forth with staff on for an extended period of time. Mainly the adjacent street agreement, and the reason it was so complex is because we are redefining Seba there in the southwest corner. Right now it's a 90-degree bend. We're taking that out and putting that in. So we had to come up with the logistics and come up with a adjacent street agreement that would satisfy everyone. And I believe we've done that. Honestly, we've got a grading permit. We're ready to get a pre-con and get started. So we're here tonight to get the 6-month extension, although I think a 1-month extension would probably be good enough. 6.
I remember this coming.
Kayla?
Yes, so the preliminary subdivision plans for sub 2121 Meadow Ridge was preliminarily approved by the planning commission on August 15th of 2023. Over the last year, the engineer has been working to address all staff comments on the preliminary plans and adjacent street agreement, as well as address comments from ADH. The engineer has requested a 6-month extension of preliminary approval to address the last few minor staff comments, then begin construction. The most important thing to note that I think the first time this came through, because there were so many unknowns, was Seba and how that was getting built, especially because you've got that little pocket of somebody else's property. So that was really the only thing I really want to highlight and clarify for you guys with this extension. I can go through the rest of the plans if you want, but so this is on the corner of Keller Road and Seba. Seba Road is designated as a major arterial with a planned right-of-way of 100 feet per the master street plan. The section of Seba Road fronting this property is currently gravel and includes a sharp 90-degree turn. So this subdivision will dedicate 50 feet of right-of-way along their frontage to meet the master street plan, except for in that corner right there where they'll be dedicating the full 100 feet to realign Seba Road. And then all improvements to Seba Road will take place with phase 2 of this subdivision. They'll do Keller Road with phase 1 and then Seba with phase 2. So they'll do a 26-foot pavement with 2-foot gravel shoulders on either side. And then there will be ditches on either side of the road. The city has agreed to cost share in the amount of $45,000 to pave a 330-foot section of Seba Road adjacent to the subdivision's frontage. The city is not cost sharing for the realignment of the curve on Seba Road and have instead allowed the subdivision to install a modified street section and not pave to the end of their street frontage to the north end of Seba, which saves the developer approximately $80,000 and then allows for a second realignment of Seba Road on that north curve. So they will install a 10-foot trail along the frontage of their property. Street trees will be planted along Seba Road at a spacing of 1 tree per 25 linear feet of frontage, and their streetlights will be installed at entrances and every 300 feet. Okay.
And I do have one question. I believe in the ordinance, it says every 25 to 40 feet. We did the 25 because that's what staff wanted, but what is the variation there in the ordinance, 25 to 40 feet? From trees?
I'm not sure that the linear footage is actually in the
I think
ordinance
part of
right
it is
now.
the types of trees.
I would think that would be species driven.
I mean, we're fine with the 25, I would just, for my own.
The 25 feet is typical. That's typically what you guys ask for subdivisions. But if you want something else, speak now.
In an effort of consistency, I think that's fine. Honestly, I didn't know that. Yeah, I don't know why you would give a varying spacing other than the width, the tree species, but I'm not sure you want huge monster trees next to the street either.
I don't.
What we picked is something I believe that will work and look very attractive.
I don't know where the 40 feet. Where that came from.
I'll go back and look. It doesn't matter. I was just curious to see if anybody ever.
I don't-
Before.
So, can we go over the details of this road improvement? What's happening through the
spot?
through the one parcel?
That's the $45,000 that we're saying. So
What's the section look like?
it is going to be 26 feet of asphalt with gravel shoulders. So they'll work the base on that. We're not gonna do anything on Seba, even though there's an entrance off of Seba Road until phase 2, because we do that first stub of 200 feet. It's just gonna get beat up for the rest of construction because that's your main access point. So Keller will get done with phase 1. All of Seba will be done with phase 2 afterwards with that same section. And where it stops on the west end is about where the same transition where we start cutting through, so west side develops. It had that same relocation. And we're got that cost shares. Had we done the normal section, C was supposed to be a 5-lane, so 28 feet asphalt, curb and gutter around the whole length. With the added cost of the relocate and all that, that ends up being a little less expensive. Based on the calculations, and based on those calculations, how we got that 45,000. Ended up being closer to like 43,000, but 45,000 is a nice round number to pay to get that 33 or 330 feet done.
Do we have right of way on the west? And
Yes, with the track split, we
Oh,
acquired right of way.
not all, do we have,
We have a lot of it.
I know on the southern half we do, but I don't think on the northern.
I'm talking over there.
The northern.
Yeah, down there in the southern half, we do from a track split, but not on the,
The northern half, what do you mean by?
Up
the
here.
northern half?
from about the entrance drive north, maybe even a little bit further south of that entrance drive. You don't have right away. The county,
Is that an issue?
no, not for paving and all that, but
So it's within the existing road section currently? Or,
it'll be off, yeah, off the existing where it is the wide.
one more, on the northeast corner in that other gap. Are we doing kind of the same thing?
We will.
Phase 2?
No, so that's not on his property at all. So that property on the west that we don't have right away, it's in the county. When they go through, that's what we'd be looking at doing, to flatten that road, so it's not that direct line, so. Where the pavement stops is where that same typical section we have south. That's not what you're talking about?
No. I'm talking about northeast corner, that little gap. Are we doing
Let's look at the northwest.
a cost share there due to?
No, they're just gonna, just because looking at that one, they already know for so, as short of a section that is, they'd have to come repair it anyway. It's cheaper for them just to pave it. I think it's 50 feet.
I just want to make sure we had a consistent section through there.
But on neither of those sections will we have sidewalk. Sidewalk will terminate where it is.
Yeah, I understand that. That's gonna clean up that quarter quite a bit. And then Tim, track D, what are the plans on that? Developer just wants to pay taxes on it?
Zoom out, let me see what track D is. I don't even
It's in the
remember.
corner of that remainder track that's where the road comes through?
I'm not sure what's gonna happen with that, to be honest. I guess they'll see if somebody at one of the adjacent property owners may want it. I don't know. we hadn't got-
Sell it and put a billboard on it.
The building disagreed with that.
Billboard?
Yes, the building just yelled at you.
It's like a little neighborhood park to me.
So if that one odd track, the one odd.
There.
There you go.
Offsite parking agreement?
Yeah.
Side part.
All right.
Look out.
If there's nothing else, then I would entertain a motion for subdivision 2121 request for extension of the preliminary approval for 6 months.
Yeah, motion to approve subdivision 2121 Meadow Ridge, request for extension of preliminary approval for 6 months.
Second.
Motion and second. Is anyone opposed? Thank you, Tim. Good luck.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Just put a bridge over that one parcel.
Good. All right, our next planning commission meeting is 9/3. I think is the day after Labor Day, so if you can't be here, make sure you let us know. We can start later for John next time, I guess.
Yeah, they talked to the road department about these stoplights.
The
The road was wide, you'd be fine.
and there's a tech review meeting that's the 22nd. Anything else from staff?
For. All September.
We are going to do a work session after this, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn the planning commission meeting.
Do we wanna ask anybody in the audience? Did y'all have anything to add before we close? Okay. This is Joey. I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. Is anyone opposed? All right. Thank you, guys.
I recorded it. Please, anybody. I recorded it. Documentation purpose. Stuff. It's just. Yeah. Jim, I'm gonna run